Now we have a batch of family and friends' weddings. I'm on some of them, so they will be before May 1943, when I joined the Navy. Others I'm not so sure about. The first one is Kathleen Ward, the wedding of Kathleen Ward, and all the action takes place in front of their house, 206 Barnsley Road, Wombwell. Mr. and Mrs. Ward moved there. I knew them when they lived at number 64 Barnsley Road. All the action takes place in their, I was going to say their front garden. It's their front garden space, because from the room window to the wall on the pavement was about 6 foot square. And so that's why it appears so cramped. It was very cramped when everybody wants to get in on the act. I'll try and throw a few names in as I can, but everything happens pretty quickly. Kathleen's sister Joan, in the RAF uniform, was chief bridesmaid, and she later married Jack Beardsall, who was a wartime fighter pilot. Jack was brother to Margaret, who married Uncle Ken, and you'll see their wedding on this. So, there we go. Let's go now. Weddings. Kathleen and John, there's Uncle Herbert, Mrs. Ward and Mr. Ward, and that's Auntie Ida. Lemmy Ibbotson used to have the post office, 62 Barnsley Road. There's one of the Varney girls. You can see the Joan in the RAF uniform. She was chief bridesmaid. Her husband, Jack Beardsall, was a wartime fighter pilot. Jack was brother to Margaret, who married Uncle Ken, and their wedding comes later. Mrs. Varney, all sorts of people coming in. Another one of the Varneys. I don't know who the steward there was, but Mr. Varney. And there's Kathleen, we can see her now. And yes, there's Mr. Ward himself, congratulating. I feel that I remember her, that lady. Oh dear, never mind. Jack Varney, one of the great tenor singers was Jack. Now this is another wedding. This is probably Uncle Ken and Auntie Margaret's, and that must have been then before I joined up. 42 perhaps. Talking with Grandad, and that's coming out of 32 Main Street. And here is Mam coming out of 179, and here we are now up in the Beardsall's house, Branksome in Summer Lane, top of Cemetery Road. Nice large house. Grandma and Grandad coming out first with the others. Then the other parts of Margaret's family. I don't know many of the names here. Another carload. And then the bridesmaids with Joan. Getting in the car. And now Margaret with her dad. Her dad ran a gents' hairdressers at the top of Station Road in Wombwell. A great crush now coming out of the service at Barnsley Road Church. Herbert Sykes there, I see. Then from the other side, there's Mum, Uncle George Albert in the doorway. Grandma and Grandad. That is our family. That's Mum and Auntie Dot coming out. And now a pan, rather a quick one. You shouldn't have been quite so fast with this one, Dad. But there we are, people that... there's Margaret's Grandma and Grandad. Kathleen Ward, married, Edna Warner, some of the Varneys. And coming out of church now is Valerie with Ken and Margaret. Valerie not quite sure what to do, so Mum steps in and... oh, there we go, look at that. Uncle Herbert there. And the bridesmaid, Grandma coming out with Joan. Joan Ward as she was then, of course, before she got married. And now at the back of the house in Summer Lane. Always have to have the bride and groom's kiss. Now we're into clown weddings. People in Clown in Derbyshire. These are Ibbertson's weddings. That was one of Mum's cousins, her Uncle Joe's daughter. And there they are coming out of the church. I wish I knew the names, but there we go. In the back garden of their house, Dad trying to get some action. Oh, there we are. And then Mum and Dad, Mum and others, because Dad's filming, isn't he, on the road in the front of the house. Sisters of the bride, I think she was Jessie, I'm not sure. Children there, quite safe in playing on the main road past the house. And, of course, the inevitable waving. What else do you do? Enid on the end. And the newlyweds leave. Notice the V for Victory sign. Mum and her sister following. Brief glimpse of Rennie there. There he is. And getting in the car ready to send them off. Grandma and Grandad and Uncle Joe coming out of 32 Main Street with Rennie as the usher this time. For Uncle Herbert's wedding, Herbert and Ida. The church was right on the pavement. And you'll see, I think there's a lady who comes past with a pram at some time. There's Kathleen being lifted up. Little girl we saw earlier. Frida Hickling in the front. Herbert and Ida and Auntie Amy there. Uncle Clifford and Ken. And loads of... who's this? Grandad with Mrs. Duncan, Auntie Ida's mum, and one of her sisters. Grandma with Mr. Duncan. Everybody having a good time. There's Kathleen with her mum, Auntie Ida, Auntie Amy. Uncle Cliff and his brood. There's a lady going past, look, with a pram. Yep. Off you go, Ken and Margaret. And Ida's two sisters. I'm not sure about the baby. I don't quite know who that was. Probably one of the sisters' children, I suppose. And this is one of the ladies, one of the dark... This is Olga Rhodes. She was obviously home at that time. And obviously invited to the wedding. There they are, bringing up the rear, the door shutting behind them. Oops. And all going round to the side of the church, the Baptist church in Barnsley, upstairs to the breakfast. Now, I did get some leave for this weekend, but I think I only made it more or less after the meal was just about finishing. But I did get my tea out of it anyway. Then went back on the Sunday to Guildford, where I was in training at the time. There they all are coming through. Now Irene Varney and Stan Racer's wedding. That was outside Barnsley Road Methodist Church again. One of the Varneys, as I've mentioned. Margaret there. Irene. Margaret is a bridesmaid. There she is, with her colleague, probably another member of the family. And the best man? Mr. and Mrs. Varney. Now we're on another one of the clown weddings, and this is the other sister to be married. The bride and groom getting showered and coming away from the church and being greeted by the family, and off they go. I still have to investigate the Ibbotson family. There we are, being greeted by a number of the family themselves. Bridesmaids, the groom obviously, and then some of there's Uncle Joe Byfield, I recognise in the suit, and Uncle John Byfield. He was a greengrocer, lived in Hemmingfield. Mum and the cousin who was married on the first clown wedding that we saw. Yep, there they go. Right, now I can definitely put a date on this. This is 1950. Mum tying the ribbons under the front of the old 88151, running me out of number 6 Cotswold Road, where I lived with Ron and Lily Holland, and they're sending me off for my wedding. Bridesmaid outside the Lowerwich church door, Enid and Valerie's cousins, Joyce and little Rosemary. Here's the bride's car coming up the drive. How they got round that corner, I don't know. Dad Childs helping Vera out of the car. That's fine, but there's no photographer, no official photographer. It's caused a lot of consternation with only Dad and his Cinny, which is a good job he was there. Otherwise we wouldn't have got these pictures. This is inside the church, which didn't come out very well, and it really wasn't the thing to do because there were no flashes in those days. Here we are with the ceremony over, and well, who's that, I wonder? Panning round to see a few people. There's Ron with Jeff Croft. Church and friend organist was Jeff. And then as we come round, there were others, more people from the Witch, where Vera lived, and friends and relations. Uncle Mal. There's the bridesmaids, Dad, and Vera's mum. Oh dear. And then coming round to Auntie Mabel and Rosemary, Mrs. White, Auntie Dot, Uncle Mal, and there's Mum rearranging and there's the wedding party. And here we are inside the church hall for the wedding feast. There's some cake, and coming down, Mrs. White on the end, and Reverend Townsend, Tiny, Auntie Ida, Ron in the background, Rosemary there with her mum, and Vera's Uncle Jack. We have now rather a pleasant recording of Vera. I did this in about 1995 or in 1993, some years before she died anyway, and she wanted to give her own account of her wedding day, and so here she is telling us all about it.
Hello everybody, I am Vera, wife of Alfred, mother of Anne, Jonathan and Gillian. We were married July the 8th, 1950, which was also my mother's birthday. I grew up in Malvern, Worcestershire, and apart from my mother's brother Jack, wife Ida and cousin Joyce, the tall bridesmaid, I did not know the rest of Mother's family, as they mostly emigrated to Canada in 1926 and 1930. All Dad's family lived in the Malvern area, and as eldest granddaughter I was not short of attention, and my brother came along, Frederick George, on March 29th, 1932. When we married, food and clothing coupons were still in use. Everyone thought when the war finished in 1945, so would coupons. They didn't, and food, clothing and furniture were still rationed till 1951, I think it was. We managed to get the material for my dress with coupons given by many people, and I think the cost of the material was all of £3. No way could one buy a headdress or a veil, so Auntie Ida loaned me hers, which was 23 years old. I think it had a tear in it somewhere. I know it was an awful job to make it that the veil went on the head and the headdress on top to hide the hole, but we managed anyway. And the cake was given by my employers, because no way could we have got a cake with coupons, and dried fruit was practically non-existent. Now, the granddad who helps himself to a cake as we were cutting the wedding cake is John Henry Cooper, my mother's father, and his wife Selina, how I wished I'd been called Selina, died about 1919, and when my parents married, he lived with them till he was lived with them till 1954. Granny, who was in one of the groups, Dark Clothing, was my dad's mother, Lillian Isabel. I was named after her. Next to her, in a white spotted dress, is Auntie Gertie, a good friend of the family, and she made my dress. We were married, it was a Saturday, at 11:30 in the morning, and this was very unusual and caused quite concern within the family, because all weddings had to take place on a Saturday afternoon when all the men folk had finished their work for the week, because everybody worked 6.5 days then. So to get married on a Saturday morning meant that many people had to take a half day's leave to be with us. Anyway, they did. They came along, and we had this reception in the parish hall, which was next to the church. And the parish hall was loaned to us for 3 days by the parish. It was a wedding present. We had it on the Friday to get it ready, the Saturday to have the reception, and the Sunday to clear up. And it had all been newly refurbished, so that was super. We left for our honeymoon, I think it must have been about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we went to Torquay. Well, of course, anybody who went to Torquay in 1950 had pots of money. Well, of course, we didn't have any, but we managed to go to Torquay, and that was the Queen of the English Riviera, so we did ourselves proud. And we didn't take any luggage with us. We'd sent all our luggage in advance because we weren't going to be look like honeymooners going off. Dad went off in just some flannels and a jacket, what wasn't new, although I did have a new Moigashell linen suit, and I just went with a handbag and that was it, so we didn't look at all as though we were just married, although we felt it. And we had a glorious week in Torquay, and then we came back to a flat. Now, most people had to live with mums and dads because the housing situation was even worse then than it is now. And we had 2 rooms and a little box room and the share of the bathroom in a friend's house, the Hollands house. Now, Ron and Lily had that flat for 3 or 4 years, and they'd been allocated a house, and so they moved out and we moved in, and we stayed there for 2 years. And then we had a cottage offered to us right out in the country, and off we went. So we did very, very well with our set off in life.
Okay, folks, hope you enjoyed those weddings. Some I was there, some I wasn't, but I too have enjoyed living with them over these past years. Okay.